Okay, so welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jennifer Marsden. I am the College and Career Specialist at Ashland High School. And so tonight the goal is to introduce you primarily to the different scholarship opportunities available to AHS seniors. And at the end of the scholarship presentation, for those of you who want to stick around and want to learn more about FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, the CSS profile, which is another financial aid application. I'm going to go through some of that information, general information for some of you if you haven't done the FAFSA yet. And then for those of you who are working on the FAFSA or CSS profile and have questions, I'm happy to stick around and answer those as well. Okay, so first off, just general important scholarship information. So it's really important for students and parents to remember, and I stress this with kids a lot, that the biggest pot of money potentially for most students that you can get in the forms of scholarships is from the colleges that you're applying to, right? So a lot of schools, when you apply, they automatically, like a lot of the private schools, just right off the top, University of Portland, Lewis and Clark will give you a dean scholarship or a presidential scholarship, and it's like $20,000 to $25,000 right off the top. A lot of the state schools, when you apply, you don't have to apply for any other merit scholarships based on academics like merit, and you'll automatically get those. But a lot of the colleges like SOU, U of O, they have separate scholarship applications that students should also look for in terms of applying. So like SOU has what's called their SOSA, separate scholarship application. And so I always encourage students and parents, if you're helping your students, to look at the college's website, see what other scholarship opportunities are available. OSU has what's called Scholar Dollars. Portland State has their own scholarship application. University of Portland has a whole page of all sorts of scholarships students can apply for through their school, but also through all sorts of organizations. So there's money out there. Really important to students, for students to pay attention to deadlines. So of course, specific scholarship applications have deadlines, and those are hard deadlines. It's also important in terms of applying to college. So like for SOU, for U of O, for a lot of state schools, they have what's called their priority deadline. And students ask, what is that? Is that like early action? Is that like, do I have to apply by then? Because it says rolling admissions after then. It's like, well, that's true, right? If you don't apply by the priority deadline, you can still apply after. But if you apply after, you're most likely not going to be put in the pool for that automatic merit aid and scholarships that you would have gotten if you applied by the priority deadline. So it's really important for students to apply by that priority deadline. This happens every year with our students who don't think they're going to go to SOU. They don't apply to SOU. They're planning to go to somewhere else. And then come June, July, August, their plans change for whatever reason, money, family, they decide they want to go to SOU, they apply to SOU, they get in, but they're not going to get that $4,000 or that $2,500 Laurel Scholarship or Raider Scholarship that they would have gotten if they had just applied by the priority deadline. And so I'm really encouraging kids just to keep all of their options open. Students can apply to SOU without even having to pay the application fee. Students can always do that if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, but we're having admissions on the spot with SOU coming up. One is on December 16th, and we have another one, I think it's January 13th, where students will show up with an admissions counselor from SOU, and they'll just fill in their application online. It's super easy, no essay, none of that, and then they just get to apply for free. And it's the same thing I encourage kids with RCC, with community college, the Oregon Promise Grant that helps pay for community college, to just keep all those options open. And I used to say, you never know what's going to happen. You can change your mind. And now I don't even have to really say that, because now they've lived it and they see their friends who last year had all these plans, and then COVID hit, and then the fires, and then it's like, yeah. And for this year's seniors, really not sure, what the fall is going to look like. I'm hopeful that by fall, colleges are going to kind of be back to a regular kind of college experience. Oh, that went ahead. Okay, so deadlines. Some of you already know this, but even though private schools can have really huge price tags like, Reed or Willamette or Harvard or Stanford, they're $70,000 to $80,000 a year. A lot of these schools have huge endowments that allow them to meet a student's financial need. Some of these schools are even no loan schools where they'll see what a student's family can afford based on their FAFSA, their EFC, and then they will make sure that they will cover the rest and give them a really large financial aid award. So for students who are interested in private schools, I have lists of no loan schools, schools that meet financial need. So I like to make students aware of that as well. But what we're going to talk about tonight are these 3 scholarship programs. So one is OSAC, which we're going to get to first, and then the AHS local scholarships process, and then also the Ford Scholars program. And last year, every year over the last number of years, I think it was more than this last year, from these pots of money, actually not the Ford Scholars because they give way more money than that. One of our students got over 200,000 last year from the Ford Scholars. But just for the OSAC and the AHS local scholarships, our students at Ashland High School receive way over $100,000. Okay, so the OSAC scholarship. So OSAC stands for the Oregon Office of Student Access and Completion. It's a statewide office out of Salem. And one of the things OSAC does, besides facilitate grants like the Oregon Opportunity Grant and the Oregon Promise Grant, is they also coordinate a scholarship application process, which has come to be known as the OSAC Scholarship. So this is one online application that students fill out, and there, I think, are over 400 scholarships potentially that students can apply to through the OSAC. The application opens every year November 1st. It's not due until March 1st. There's an early bird deadline of February 15th, which we really encourage students to submit by then. For one, if you submit by then, you could possibly they have a random drawing for $1,000, several $1,000 early bird scholarships. But the really important part is if you make any mistake in your application when you submit by February 15th, they will notify you and give you time to correct that up until March 1st. So I am going to escape from the PowerPoint now and take you to where all this OSAC scholarship information lives on our website. So if you want to follow along on your computer, you can click on the link in the chat to see that. So just for the future, if you go to Counseling Services on the AHS webpage, go down to College and Career Center. This has kind of been being reworked by our new web person since the summer, so it's not quite as I'd like it, but you can pretty much find what you need here. And you go to Financial Aid and Scholarships. I think that's loading, so I'll move this up. So when you get to this page, I guess I have to, why isn't my mouse working? Oh, there, okay. So there's just some general information, FAFSA, links to OSAC. Here's a link to the CSS profile, that other financial aid application I mentioned. There's some general information. If your student scrolls down to here, they find the Oregon Student Aid OSAC link. So there's some general information here about OSAC and how it works. And then down here is the really important information. So this link right here, OSAC scholarship application, takes you or your student to the OSAC page. So in every CCR class, including AP Econ, they have their CCR kind of separately, and I meet with them after school to do these different scholarship parts, and we've done that already. All your students should have had the opportunity to create an OSAC account. They clicked apply here. Originally, we did this before the OSAC was open on November 1st. So anywhere you click apply, it takes you to this page. Students need to register and make an account. I'm hoping all of your students have an account. The only reason they wouldn't is if they had their camera off and they were doing other homework or weren't there the day we did this. So you register, make an account. I have my account. Anyone can make an account. You can make a test account. Oh, this is my old one. I had to update this today. So let me do this really fast. I want to show you what it looks like inside. Nope, didn't like that one. Oh, no, I wasn't typing it in. They made me change my password this morning. Oh, it really doesn't like it.
Jen,
Okay, yeah.
you have a comma after Ashland, after the
Oh,
at.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I looked at it, I was like, that's a weird
That
one.
looks weird. And where did I even write that? I wrote it on here. Okay, I know I'm remembering that.
Yeah, so your password might have been right. That comma might have been it.
Thanks. It's dark in here. I need more light. That's what I need. I need my glasses is what I need. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry about that.
Jen, and can we just make up an account for us as a parent and just never apply just so I can see stuff?
Yes. And at a certain point, they ask you, is this a test application? And you just put this as a test application.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And the problem why it's still not working. Okay, I'll try it one more time and then I'm going to give up because I could just tell you what everything is in here. Nope, it didn't like it. They gave me a whole new thing today. Oh, I know why it is. Sorry. They changed my username. And this is what I spend a lot of time doing with kids. There we go. Okay. It's been a long day. Okay. So once you create an account, you can log in and you have access to all sorts of things in OSAC. So here's the Oregon Promise. Your student should already have applied for the Oregon Promise. So for those of you who don't know, the Oregon Promise is a statewide grant to help make community college affordable for all Oregonians. So right out of high school or right after they get a GED. The application takes about 5 minutes. It's about 5 pages. They just fill in some basic information. Important thing for your student to remember, and you, if you're helping them on both this and the OSAC scholarship, both have a GPA transcript section. The question will be, who is going to upload or verify GPA? Ashland High School will do this for all our students. And so you always want to make sure your student clicks that box. I will have Ashland verify my GPA, because to get the Oregon Promise, you need to have a 2.5 GPA. And then they just go ahead and submit. One thing that you might hear your students say is, I submitted my Oregon Promise or I submitted my scholarship application, but the high school still hasn't verified my GPA or uploaded my transcript. We will not do that until the end of first semester, because that's when OSAC wants us to do that. They want to see those first semester grades. For students who are applying for the Oregon Promise who don't have a 2.5 GPA at the end of first semester, they have until the end of the year to get their GPA up to a 2.5. So then we go back and check after second semester is over. And every year we have 3 or 4 kids who have eked their way up there to that 2.5, and then we can verify them. So this is the OSAC scholarship application. When students go in, they have a whole dashboard. Most of it is really general information. Things to remember, I already mentioned the transcript part. Students will put in their high school, Ashland High School, and once they do that, OSAC has a lot of scholarships, and I'll show you the cheat sheet for it when we go back out of here, that just by putting Ashland High School as their school they're graduating from in OSAC, the platform is smart enough that it puts all these Ashland High School scholarships in the student's scholarship basket. So they never even have to search for those scholarships and apply for them. One thing that I like students to do, and I talk about it, the application asks for your current college choice for the 21-22 school year. I highly encourage students to put their top choice Oregon Public University. If they are absolutely not applying to an Oregon Public University, I encourage them to put their top choice Oregon Private University. The reason for this is, yes, there are lots of scholarships here you can take out of state, but if you put Stanford as your top choice, and it very well might be, if you end up staying in state and you could have been eligible for one of the Oregon scholarships, it's really a bummer. You're never going to even have the option of getting one. If you put OSU here and you get selected by the Bears scholarship, which the Bears organization every year gives 10 or maybe it's $12,000 scholarships to 10 or 12 different students, but you have to go to an Oregon public or private school. So I can't see any negatives to putting an Oregon school here. I tell kids, you know, you get one of those scholarships, you just say, hey, thanks, thank you so much, but I'm going to school out of state, and they'll say, congratulations, we will give your scholarship to someone on the wait list. So that is something to maybe be aware of if you see that your student has put in an out-of-state school in that category. So here's the scholarship section. I think it's going there. And you can see, like I said, it's already added all these Ashland scholarships to my account automatically. So, and also once students have completed the main part of the application, then they can start adding scholarships. And they do this by going to all scholarships, and then they can search either by name or by number. And that's why we have the cheat sheets to help students find scholarships that they're going to be eligible for. OSAC will also recommend some potential scholarships, but their filter's not great. But it's totally worthwhile for your student to go through the recommended, like maybe your student put that they're interested in engineering. So OSAC could throw them a bunch of engineering scholarships that they might want to apply for, or nursing or education. Students can also search by activities like performing arts, theater, golf, tennis, hunting, Boy Scouts. So there's scholarships that are definitely for students based on the activities they've been involved in. So the two most time-consuming parts of the OSAC application are the personal statements, which are right here, and the activity chart. So usually in the CCR classes, students have worked on a kind of personal essay. We made the decision last year to have them respond to these personal statements because not every student applying to college is going to have to write a college application essay, but pretty much every student, whether they're going to a community college, a vocational school, a four-year school, they're going to apply for scholarships. And if they're not, the time to invest in these and the kinds of questions and prompts these are really good things for a senior to be thinking about. These are the type of questions they might be asked in a job interview if they're looking for an apprenticeship. So these prompts are asking for 1,000 characters. So that's a chunky paragraph, 150 to 170 words. So we're not asking kids to write an essay on each of these, and every senior already should have this done. Their CCR teachers had them turn them in, they got feedback. I've looked at some of them when students have asked me. So this should be really easy for students this year. And I've been in their class where we're working on these, they're working on the activity chart, and I'm gonna be in CCRs again the next 2 weeks where we're just gonna have a work day where students can be working on scholarship applications, they can be working on college applications. I am going to be in a breakout rooms for students who wanna be working on those things and talking to me. There'll be another breakout room where their CCR teacher will be helping them, students who want to work on other CCR, like they're working on financial literacy right now and employability and resumes. So there might be students who want to work on that. And then the counselors will also be coming in the next 2 weeks and meeting with each of their seniors. We've got a senior survey going now to really kind of find out what each senior's thinking. And Of course, the counselors have met with a lot of their seniors already who are applying to colleges and have needed to meet with them, but to really try to capture a lot of those seniors who are not seeking out help, who maybe need some more support to get where they want to go. So this is the activity chart, kind of divides it into 3 general areas, and your students have all gotten all sorts of info on how to do this. There's a activity chart tips and hints, which I tell the kids about. So when I'm not there answering questions, this often will have the information for them. I really encourage students to ask their parents about this, because a lot of kids, they're looking for any activities from the 8th grade graduation, so summer after 8th grade, through high school. So I tell kids, okay, if you've been in band since middle school, that's awesome, but you're not going to include the hours for band in middle school. But in terms of things they forget, like they forget a lot of summer activities. Like remember that summer between 8th and 9th grade, you volunteered for Science Works for a month. So those are things parents might be able to remind them of, or hey, Fresh Start counselor, that's something you should definitely put on here. I tell kids, these are kind of strict categories: school activities, volunteer activities, paid work history. There's things kids do that don't seem to easily fall in one of those categories. One of them that comes up a lot is kids who participate in school sports, but also club sports. Where do you put the club sports? So I encourage kids just to combine their school and club sport if they do both, like if they're club and school soccer, put it under the category of school activities. But just when they describe it, say, varsity soccer, Ashland High School / club, and then include, all the hours. So do you all have any questions on that? They're really looking for, family activities too. A lot of our kids do, beyond basic chores in the house, they have responsibilities in the household, like really helping to take care of grandma or grandpa or their siblings, especially with distance learning. Finding a lot of our students are really helping to supervise their younger siblings in the household. So that's something a student can put on. And some of them kind of get freaked out when they have to come up with the total hours. Like, oh my God, I'm on the ski team and I've done it for 4 years. So they just need to ballpark it. I tell them, the organizations want to know, is this something you did once for 2 hours, or is this something you're passionate about and have devoted hundreds or maybe thousands of hours to? And so not to, get hung up on the actual numbers. So when you count out the hours a week and multiply it by 4, and then by however months you do it a year, and then times 4, if you've done it for 4 years, if you get something like 3,821, just ballpark it to 3,800 or 3,820. No one's going to question it. These are estimates. So I get that question a lot. So if your kid comes and says, hey, I'm trying to figure this out, and do you remember like how many hours a day did I do that Science Works thing or work at Loma Katsi, or how many weeks was it? This is why they're asking you that. So that's the bulk of OSAC, and I'm going to take you back here. Well, I guess I got here from the AHS page, so I'm going to have to go all the way back or reload. One thing to remember too is your student can submit their OSAC application next week, but up until March 1st, they can go back in and make changes. So if they submitted and then they realize, oh shoot, I forgot to put that I do Key Club and we did these activities with Key Club, or oh shoot, I realized when I was doing my local scholarships that there was a typo in my personal statement, or that this sounded really confusing. They can just log back into their OSAC scholarship, make corrections, and resubmit. So I really like that they did that. That was a change they made last year, made it a little more forgiving. Okay, so let's see if I can get back to the Ashland High School page, or I could just reload it. Almost there. Okay, so now we're back here. Gonna go back to OSAC. So what I want to make sure you see and your students see are these 2 cheat sheets we put together for Ashland High School students. So this first one is the Ashland High School Student Scholarships. And what I've encouraged students to do, and usually in regular school times, I would have hard copies of these and we'd be sitting in a computer lab and I'd be handing them out to kids and I'd say, okay, read through these and put a check by, the ones that you think you might be eligible for. Not so much on this one because most of these are automatic, but I draw their attention to the ones that aren't automatic. So you can see all of these that say auto at the end of scholarship code. They don't have to do anything to apply for those, but submit the OSAC scholarship. Then they'll see ones that have numbers like this George Robertson scholarship, which has a code. So I have them read this. They're looking for students who attended elementary, middle, and high school in Ashland. They've been active in sports the whole time, and they have a minimum GPA of 2.5. That is a lot of our kids. So all they have to do is go to their OSAC scholarship, and on that scholarship page in the search bar, type in 453 or Robertson. That will pop up. They click add. Down here, we have the Russ and Rose Audie Scholarship for students who have participated in choir, band, or orchestra. Russ Audie was the choir director at Ashland for many years, so they really, really want choir students. We convinced them last year. He really was stuck on students going to 4-year schools, but we have so many students going to 2-year schools. They changed this last year. So if you have a student who has participated in choir and are planning to go on even to a 2-year school, you definitely want them to apply for this scholarship. Or if your student has friends that you know are in choir, we never have enough students apply for this. And then this is a great, relatively new scholarship, the Maple Kindness Scholarship. Last year, they gave 6 scholarships to AHS seniors, 4 for $1,000 and 2 for $2,000. And this scholarship, like a number of them, you can see below here, say may be renewed. It doesn't say that here, but I know it is a renewable scholarship. And when you see that, it means that the scholarship organization has a way for students to come back to them their first year of college and say, hey, I'm doing well in school. I am so appreciative of the scholarship I got for you, and I would really like the opportunity to renew my scholarship for a second year. And usually that is, the student has to be aware of that, and we let them know when they get scholarships, this is renewable. This is who you have to contact, because you'd be surprised how many kids forget about that and lose out on that opportunity. So if your student gets a renewable scholarship, put it in your calendar to remind them to follow up with our scholarship coordinator next year. We hear from a lot of parents to make sure that they access that money. So any questions about those? This next cheat sheet is a little longer. It's 3 pages, and it's a cheat sheet we've compiled that has scholarships for students from all over Oregon or from Jackson County that our students have applied for in the past. Some might be eligible for, some might not, but this is definitely one I tell students, okay, read through this and annotate in some way the ones you want to add. So like this first one is for students going into engineering, public or private school in Oregon. We have one for first or second generation immigrants here. This Ben Franklin one is for students who are planning to attend an Oregon 4-year public university. It's one of those that is for Oregon, is for public. Again, a student can apply for it, and then if they get it and go to a private school or go out of state, they just say thanks, but no thanks. There's one for Eagle Scouts. There's for students in the performing arts, students who have been on the golf team. There are a number of scholarships for students who have been in the foster care system. So I really encourage students, and if you know any students who have been in foster care or currently in foster care, please have them reach out to me so I can make sure that they apply for all those pots of money that are available to them. 4-H, there's ones for nursing, for the visual arts. There's one here, the Tuvel, that is just for boys, young men who live in Jackson County. So I really encourage all of our boys to just enter 721 and apply for that. Tuvel has evolved over the year. If you're reading along with me, it says it's awarded to worthy boys, and then they define worthy boys are those who are facing challenges and need extra help to become better citizens. So within those personal statements, most applicants speak to something in that realm. So it doesn't hurt any student who's male, who identifies as male, to apply for that. Okay, so that is OSAC, and I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint for a minute. Move you all up here. Any questions while I'm kind of fumbling around with the screen? Where are we? So I'm going to go from current slide. Okay, so we just went over this, the cheat sheets on OSAC.
I do have a quick question, Jennifer.
Awesome. Yes, Mary.
What are the scholarships that require SAT scores doing this year?
That's a good question. I am guessing, like most colleges, it's totally optional. So I don't see how they can require them. So I'm guessing if it's not updated in OSAC, like for that engineering one, if they don't say it's optional, you just leave it blank if you don't have them, and then they'll get to decide what they're going to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't say about the personal statements and activity chart, but I do talk to students a lot about it, and so did their CCR teachers, about how to write a personal statement. What's the point of it? I mean, personal statements and activity charts are the way you differentiate yourself to a scholarship committee. I mean, I tell them scholarship committees are people like me, like your parents, like your grandparents, like your teachers. This is how we get to know who you are, how we hear your voice, what's important to you. We want to believe in you. We want to see a reason to find you worthy to give you money, that you have some plan, some idea. You're showing maturity, you're showing character. You're telling us you're ready to go on to the next stage of your education. And that's why it's really important to spend time on these, to not have typos or lowercase i's when your teacher circles them and tells you to, capitalize the i's, do it, because I have seen scholarship committees throw out wonderful applicants because they have lowercase i's in their personal statements and they just think it's sloppy, and it is. And they feel it's disrespectful. And I see how it is, but a lot of high school students just don't think it is. It's just how they write. So we definitely give them that feedback, and also give them the feedback that just like college application essays, the people who are reading these are reading lots of them. So you want to use your words wisely. If a parent or a teacher reads a sentence and says, "I'm not really sure what you mean here." I know I always get defensive when someone says that, because of course I wrote it. I totally understand what I'm trying to say, but to really stop and think about it and not be defensive and kind of ask them what they don't understand and think about how you can make it clearer, because nobody reading these applications is going to read over what you're writing 2 or 3 times to try to get the gist of what you're saying. So there's some techniques to writing these. So any questions about that? And then this is just a little more on the activity chart, which I already talked with you about. I didn't mention that one little section where they get to write a description of their responsibilities with the activities. It's very short, 115 characters, but it makes a difference. So I tell kids, you don't need to say, "I played on the tennis team for 4 years." They know that from, you wrote tennis team, you told them the dates, right? You say, "I was co-captain of the varsity team my senior year. I got the Spirit Award my junior year. I made it to state," those kind of things, or, whatever, if it's your sport or speech and debate, you really want to give them something that tells them a little bit more about you in that role. And if it's work, you can talk about, customer service, or if you've got employee of the month, or, things that make you stand out. This is just another opportunity. So you should really try to use it to give them some more information about you that will help you get a scholarship. Okay, and we talked all about the personal statements. So now we're getting into the AHS local scholarships, and I don't know, I can't say what time it is because I want to make sure I'm not going to keep you here longer than an hour. And I think I'm going on a little long. So the reason we call these the AHS local scholarships, there's local scholarships right on the OSAC, but those don't go through our office. Those, we tell kids about them, we help them with the OSAC application, but we never see those scholarships. They go directly to their organizations. The AHS local scholarships, the way they've run for as long as I've been here, 12, 13 years, and I'm sure it went on for years before that, is the scholarship organizations, the Rotary, the Garden Club, would bring in their paper applications. And then students would come into the counseling office and say, I want to apply for the Rotary Scholarship. We'd have it all out on the table and they'd go through and pick out the ones they wanted to apply for. The last few years, some of the scholarship organizations made fillable PDFs or allowed us to make a fillable PDF to make it a little easier for the kids. But every organization, and we have over 15, 20 of them, asked different questions. These kids had to fill out all these different applications. It was really a lot of work. And so we finally convinced all the local scholarship organizations to let us complete a base common scholarship application. That the students only have to fill out that information once. And we even convinced them to use the same personal statement prompts that OSAC uses. So, and I'm telling kids like, oh, you don't know what it used to be like. I had to type my papers and use whiteout and you have a computer. So I tell them this and they're like looking at like, oh, this is so much work. I'm like, this is so easy compared to what seniors past had to do. You had to put them in folders and binders and it was a real hassle. So similarly though, when these, and I'm going to take you through the local scholarship, how they fill out the applications. Oh, and then this isn't changed for this year. They're not due till February 22nd this year. They will submit their local scholarship applications, even though they won't be hard copy this year. Last year, we did have them print them out and bring them in hard copy. This year, they are going to submit them as completed PDFs to our scholarship coordinator, and then she will bundle those and pass them on to the scholarship organizations. So okay, so not going to go here. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to show you where those local scholarships live. So back on the financial aid page, scroll down past OSAC. Here is all the local scholarship information. Some general info. So the first thing is these local scholarship instructions, which I've shown students where they are. I encourage them to download them, save them on their desktop or wherever they save. I actually encourage them to start a local AHS local scholarship folder on their desktop. I know a lot of students, that's how they keep track of their papers and assignments for classes each semester, is they have a folder on their desktop for everything that happens in that class. So I encourage them to make an AHS local scholarship folder. Download this, save it, stick it in there. So when you want to refer to it, you have it as a PDF. The important thing I've shown kids, since right now I'm giving them all the instructions as I'm taking them through the base application, is the deadline, February 22nd. So kind of in between the early bird for OSAC and the final deadline for OSAC. And then our scholarship coordinator, Karen Baratz, here's her email, here's her phone number. She is the scholarship queen. She created the PDF, she works with tech. So I tell kids I can help them, but then when they have really like tech issue questions, she's the person to contact. And there's step-by-step, very detailed instructions on how to do this. So what I have kids do before we start on the application is go to, right here, the local scholarship list and requirements. So this is kind of like the cheat sheets that we have for OSAC, except there's much more information since this is all done in-house and we don't have a big platform like OSAC does where they can click on the alumni and see what the supplemental requirements are. So I take the students through this, kind of point out some scholarships so they see what's here. Again, encourage them to either download and annotate and highlight the scholarships they want to apply to or print it out if they have that capacity. So a lot of them are really general, like the Ashland Alumni Scholarship. Of course, Drama Club is for students who participate in drama. National Honor Society. There's 2 scholarships for students who have parents or guardians who work in the Ashland School District. One is the Ashland Education Association Union, and one is the OSEA, that's the Union for Classified Staff. So I tell students if they know their parent works in the school district, but they don't know which union they're a part of, to go home and ask, because this is a very small pool of students and we definitely want them to apply. Culinary scholarship through the co-op. Ashland Lions has one, and here's one that must attend an Oregon public college or university, no private schools. So if a student is absolutely sure, they're not going to go to an Oregon public university, they will not want to fill this out. But if there's any chance they are, they might. This Ashland Rotary Scholarship is a really big one. The last number of years, they've given 6 or 7 students $3,500 each, and the students have the opportunity to renew for a second year. So that's $7,000 total. So if you or your student reads this description and you think they would be a good applicant, that's one they want to do, which is a good time for me to bring up the question of financial need. So a lot of these scholarships you'll see say financial need is considered. So for some scholarships, that means they really want to see students who have extreme financial need, like their expected family contribution based on their FAFSA makes them Pell eligible, meaning that they're eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which is this year going to be, I think, $6,345 or $95. But many of these scholarship organizations realize that a lot of middle income families really struggle when it comes to paying for college, because if they have an expected family contribution, say of $11,000 or $20,000, which means you're only a family making $60,000, $70,000 a year, that family's going to have a hard time paying $28,000 a year for their kid to go to U of O or OSU or SOU. It is a lot of money. So a lot of these scholarship organizations really want to try to meet these families, these students, to help them with that gap. So I encourage students, to talk to their parents about their need, and we'll talk about that when we get to the application. This Carpenter Grant is one of those that considers financial need, but they give 10 $1,000 scholarships, $1,000 scholarships a year, and it is renewable. And they definitely look at those middle income families. There's some scholarships for female students. This David Steele is a memorial scholarship for students going into firefighting, forestry, EMT, nursing, police officers. David Steele was a AHS student who became a firefighter and died in a helicopter accident fighting a fire not very many years ago. Some of the teachers at the school actually went to school with David. And we never have many students apply for this. So if you have a student who might go into one of these fields, they should definitely look at that. Here's one just for students who went to Hellman. All they have to have done is gone to Hellman Elementary and they can apply for this. Kiwanis has a bunch of different scholarships, some athletic, some vocational, some based on Key Club. So you see, you really want to have your students spend some time looking through these. I really want to point out, and I spend a lot of time with kids on this, the Lithia Springs Rotary Club is probably by organization the biggest pot of money that goes out to seniors every year, and their scholarship is very specific, and we really appreciate it because they're focusing on students who have a real idea of what career pathway they're going into, and they're looking at students that are going into educational pathways that have a clear vocational path from the beginning. So nursing, dental hygiene, firefighting, EMT, cosmetology. A few years ago, I had a student say, hey, I'm going into sound production, music technology. Do you think that's something that they would want to support? Do you think they'd consider that? And so we emailed the scholarship committee and they said, absolutely. Had a student a few years ago who wanted to go into mortuary science. I mean, I didn't even know that was a 2-year program at a community college, and he got the scholarship. Culinary, I think if anyone knows any other ones, they just have supported so many students, and the scholarships are big. Sometimes they're $10,000, $8,000, $5,000, and they give multiple of these. So over 20, sometimes close to $30,000 a year. So if you have a student who's looking at pursuing one of these vocational pathways, or you're thinking, she didn't mention the one that my student is looking at, but I think it would fit, just email me, have your student email me, call me. And I could always run it by the committee or say, oh yeah, sorry, I just forgot to mention that, like physical therapy assistant, occupational therapy assistant. I really want to try tattoo artist. We haven't had a kid apply. I tried to get one to apply last year. It's a popular career pathway with our kids. Lithia Springs has supported massage therapy. I'd really like to be able to ask if they would support someone who's going to a tattoo artistry school. So that's really an amazing scholarship. The Mimi, here's that other union scholarship. Seroptimus have a number of scholarships here. And then here's another really great one that's a little different, the Splinter Group. This was started by community members who are builders, designers, construction, contractors, to really support a student who's interested in that field. So they don't even have to be going into a program to learn about the field. They could just be wanting to work in the construction field. So they will give that student, I think it was $500 last year, to purchase tools. They also provide a mentorship program. So students, they will connect them with people in the community in the fields to help them get work and experience. So any questions for me on that little cheat sheet there? Any of those scholarships? Okay, let's see. So I'm going to pause the recording for just a second. The reason is my husband has turned something on downstairs and it's loud. Could you turn that down, honey? Thanks. Okay. I don't know if you could hear it, but I could hear it. I don't want it in the background of the recording. Okay. Cancel. Okay. So now we can go to the actual scholarship application, which is right here, the common application. And this is what it looks like. It opens in my web browser. It will open in your web browser. Students cannot start filling it out here. It will not save their information. And so if you read the instruction sheet, and as I tell kids, the first thing you do is download and save the application to your computer. So I click download. You have to save the application with a different name. I save it as AHS scholarship application. I've done this a bunch of times. I save it. On my computer, it shows up right down here. I think, oh, great, look, there's a PDF icon. I'm going to click there. I'm going to open it, and I should be able to work on it. It opens in my browser. Some students say on their browser they can fill it in and save. Does not work on mine. I have to go to my files, find the document that I've saved, open it, and then it will open it in my PDF reader. It's taking a little bit of time. Sign in required. Oh, that's annoying. I've never had to sign in before. Oh, okay, let's try another one. Let's see, maybe it'll let me sign in. Of course, these things happen that never happen. Oh, because I need to install the latest. Well, I don't really want to install the latest, but we'll try this. Who knows what my username is for this? So we might not get to do this. No, we're not going to get to do this. So let's see if I can just open. Oh, I'm so glad I finished doing this with kids today. Before this happened. Go away. Are you sure you want to quit? Yes. Because I can go through this with you. Let me open up my PDF reader. open up Adobe Acrobat. That could be the problem. So this is why I have that link to the PDF reader. Nope, it's not letting me do this. I guess I'll have to talk to tech tomorrow. Because it's much easier to fill it in, play with fonts, all of that, if you can fill it in a PDF reader. So we're not going to deal with this anymore. Okay, so this is the application. And what I encourage students to do first is just fill in the base common information that they are going to submit to every scholarship organization. So I have them just start, typing in their name, email, mailing address, cumulative GPA. Some students want to also include their weighted GPA. I tell them that's fine to do that, just to put both. SAT scores, ACT scores if applicable. We really encourage students to do that. NA, not that, if applicable to them. And that is just a really good pattern to get into in general when you're filling out any kind of applications, job applications, so that whoever is reading your application doesn't think you just forgot to put something, but that you actually read the question and that it is not applicable to you. Was there something in the chat, Karen, or did my little thing beep for?
Someone left the meeting.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so choice of college, they want you to list your top 3. For some students, that's hard. They really don't have an order of preference at this point, but they just have to do their best. For a kid who's applying to one school and knows where they're going, they can just write that school and put not applicable on the other 2 lines. Right here, I tell students is where they have an opportunity to tell the scholarship committee a little bit more about their academic record if they want. So it says if you would like to provide any information on personal or family issues that have impacted your academic achievement, please do so here. So I tell kids that's something like you had a concussion or mono sophomore year and your grades were not what they normally are. That's where you would write about that. Or maybe freshman year, maybe even freshman and sophomore year, you really didn't do that well. You really had a hard time adjusting to the workload of high school, balancing your activities, home life, friends, and school, but that you can see, or they will be able to see from your transcript that, your junior year and senior year, you've maintained like a 3.8 GPA. And so that's the kind of thing you would want a student to put here. Another thing could be a student who moved into the school during high school and had to adjust to a new school, new academic rigor potentially, or especially students who move in the middle of the year. That is a really hard transition for kids, and often you see their grades really kind of suffer in that transition year, and then they kind of bounce back to where you expect them to be the next year or the next semester. Family information. So there's 2 parent guardian slots on here. I point out to students who have done the FAFSA, who know that with FAFSA, if your parents are divorced, the FAFSA only wants one of your parent households on the FAFSA. These local scholarship organizations actually want to know who your parents, if your parents are divorced, who your original parents are. Right? They don't want to know step parents. They want to know your original birth parents, your original adoptive parents, as long as they are still in your lives. If you have a second parent who you're estranged from, who is not involved in your life, you put an NA here. For students who are independent, who don't have parents or guardians, they just need to put NA on both these slots and move on. Number of siblings, that would include if your parents are divorced, both households, step siblings, half siblings, all the siblings that are part of both households. The second question is number of siblings or others that are dependent on the family. So you all probably understand this, but I explained to the kids that these are the siblings and maybe others like grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins who have come to live with you, that your parents are actually supporting or contributing to their support. So even if you have a 25-year-old sibling who's not living in the house, check with your parents because they might be providing some support for that sibling still, or they might not. So if you have a 30-year-old sibling and you check with your parent, they say, nope, they're totally on their own. You include that 30-year-old sibling in the number up here, but not down here because they're not dependent anymore. And kids get super excited about this. Here's those same prompts. They just cut and paste those same answers right in here. And then another activity chart where students can fill this in, or they can use another activity chart that they've already made and just merge that into this document and get rid of this page. They can cut and paste from OSAC. This is where students, if a scholarship is asking for supplemental requirements, like they want you to answer a separate question or talk a little bit more about your experience in a certain field, or list, what years you went to Hellman Elementary, or who your parent is that works in the school district. All that kind of information would go here. And then this is the financial information page. And not all of these scholarships, right, are based on financial needs. So for a lot of scholarships like the Drama Club, National Honor Society, students will not turn in this financial information page with that scholarship, but they will for the scholarships that are asking for it. So again, they're asking you, give the cost of attendance for your preferred school. This is really important for parents, and so I'm glad some of you parents are here. This is where these scholarship committees really want to get a sense of what your family can afford. So not your EFC. If you're a parent who's done the FAFSA and you've seen your EFC pop up, and like, what the heck? They think that we can contribute $20,000 a year to, our child's education. That's, 25% of our resources that we bring in for the year. So they really want to know, and I tell kids, if you haven't had this conversation yet, you need to have it with your parents. They don't need to tell you how much they make, because a lot of parents don't feel comfortable talking about that. But kids need to get a sense from their parents how much they can contribute. And if it's zero, it's zero. And a lot of parents are super supportive of their kids going to college and want to help them in any way they can. But if they don't have any cash to contribute, or aren't going to be, putting it on a credit card, then that will be zero. I tell students, and I'm telling you as parents, don't put in loans that you are considering taking out. Like if you've been thinking about this and you're thinking, okay, we're willing to take out a $10,000 loan every year to help our kid do this, don't include that in this spot. Same for students. So this should be, money a student saved, if they've worked, if they have a sense of how much they'll be able to contribute, next year. I mean, it's a lot for a kid to think about each year going forward, but not to base it on a job they're hoping to get, if they're in a job and they're going to keep that job. So this is just a way for the committees to get an idea. They used to ask some of them like income of each parent. And they used to ask some of them a lot of detailed information, which I thought was very invasive. So I think this is a better way to go. This is also, if you hear your kid asking, we have a lot of really lucky students whose parents or grandparents or godparents or just good friends of the family have been really saving for them to go to college. And that's amazing. And I tell the kids to, be super grateful, and they're, really happy to be able to, be applying to colleges and know that they have that support. But it's really the time they need to sit down with grandma and grandpa or their parents or whoever and say, okay, when you say you have me covered, I really need to know, like, per year, like, how much do you have me covered? Like, is it like $28,000 a year U of O you have me covered, or $70,000 a year, or $50,000 a year, Reed or Willamette have me covered? Because those are very different. And I've talked with a lot of parents this year who have 529s and they have multiple kids. And they really thought that, having $15,000 a year for each kid was going to be enough. And it is not for their kids to go to these 4-year private liberal arts schools that their oldest is wanting to go to. And it's been a big reality check. So they've kind of adjusted, or looking at schools that meet financial need, looking more at state schools, definitely looking at applying for scholarships at those more expensive schools. But it's really heartbreaking for kids in the spring when they've been hearing from parents or grandparents that we totally have you covered, and then realize that they were not talking about having you covered in that same way. And with net price calculators, it's really relatively easy to get a good sense of how much these schools are going to cost a student and family out of pocket. So here's a chance for students to put in if they've received any financial aid. That would be a student who maybe knows they're Pell eligible already and the Pell grant that they're expecting to receive. And I just tell students just to say that they are in the process of applying for scholarships. This is an important area where I tell kids to really go and talk to their parents about, are there any special circumstances that impact your ability to pay for college that you would like us to consider? So any of you who have done FAFSA and see your EFC and are shocked, FAFSA does not consider a lot of financial, what word am I looking for? Financial situations of families that are real, and FAFSA does not take into consideration, like debt. FAFSA does not take debt into consideration at all. So you can have a family making $100,000 a year, but they could be $40,000 in debt. And they really don't have money to contribute to their students' education, even though their EFC came out to be like $30,000 and a school thinks they can contribute close to that amount. Medical expenses don't show up on FAFSA. So if anyone in the family has medical expenses, chronic or acute, that would be something to write about here. Even in normal times, when the FAFSA is based on tax information from 2 years prior, parents lose jobs. They lose jobs, they get new jobs, they're making less, they're making more. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily want to tell them you're making more, but that's the kind of thing that could be put here, especially with the impact of the fires and COVID. I'm seeing more divorce this year. These are things like, my parents have recently gotten divorced. We're setting up separate households. That's going to impact my FAFSA. This is also where I explain or impact my ability to pay for college. This is also where I explain to kids, and it's really important for parents to know too, when you get a financial aid package from a college, if you feel it's something your family cannot afford, you always have the opportunity to go to that school and ask for professional judgment. And what that is saying that our financial aid package, we feel really doesn't reflect our family's ability to pay for college. And this is why. We have these medical expenses. I lost my job. And so now our income is this. We lost our house in a fire. So that I think more than ever is going to come up for kids this year. And then the last part, some of the scholarship organizations want students to attach the first page of their student aid report, which is a summary of their FAFSA, because it has the EFC. So giving you a lot of detail, and I've gone over an hour. Just so you know, so the kids got the base application finished, right? Then what? So then they go to the cheat sheet. They're a drama kid. So they want to apply for AHS Drama Club. They type AHS Drama Club at the top. I say right away, save it as a new file, a Drama Club Scholarship or Drama Club dash their first and last name, because that's how it's going to be identified when they turn it in. And then add the supplemental information if there is any. Delete the financial page if you don't need it for that scholarship. If students, I tell them in their PDF reader that they're using, they can't delete or merge pages, they can just erase all the financial information and leave that blank, because they don't need to send it in if they don't want it. And Karen Baratz, the scholarship coordinator, knows that some kids are going to have trouble like merging their transcript. And so she's, standing ready, hopefully not at the very last minute, that kids will say, okay, here's my application, but I couldn't merge my transcript. So can you help me? And so she will help with that. We will all be helping with that. This is the first year. There's going to be some gaffes, but I think it's going to be a lot more streamlined than last year. So I am going to stop sharing my page, my screen. So for those of you who have stuck in, I'm going to turn off the recording and see what questions you all